first to a stunning decision in the family court that should raise the alarm about how children are given puberty blockers in this country. The judge stripped the mother of the custody of a son, who she claimed was actually a girl in a boy's body and should get puberty blockers. The father disagreed. He wanted to let his child be a child. And the judge said, well, leading child gender medicine experts treating this child had misled his court. The nation's peak gender clinics, he said, also should be criticised. He said, one of our top gender clinics seemed to affirm unreservedly any child thinking they were of the opposite gender. And in this case, they didn't give this 12-year-old a formal gender dysphoria diagnosis until the court proceedings started, despite having treated this child for 6 years. The judge said that with age, this child might in fact, well, they might decide they're female, they might decide male, wasn't immutable, and at this stage in the child's life, 12 years old, all options should be left open without any unacceptable risk of harm to the child. Joining me is Andrew Amos, an academic psychiatrist who's co-authored a paper in the journal Australasian Psychiatry warning that there was too much politics and not enough science in helping children change gender. Andrew, thank you so much for your time again. Look, how important is this judgment?
Evening, Andrew. Well, look, the judgment itself is obviously crucial for the health of this young boy and for the father that fought to protect him from the dangerous practices at one of Australia's leading child gender clinics. But in my opinion, it might also turn out to be the moment when Australia turned away from the harmful treatment called gender-affirming care. So basically, Justice Strum's judgment revealed that Australia has all the same problems that led the Americans and Europeans to ban puberty blockers and hormones for gender-confused kids. So clinicians, for example, ignored alternative diagnoses, excluded the child's father from treatment, and failed to do the sort of detailed assessment that's necessary to ensure patient safety, and they put this kid at unacceptable risk.
Look, it's just disgusting when you hear these details. I mean, can you imagine being a father and being excluded from decisions to do terrible, with potential long-term damage to your child without you having a say in it? I mean, it's just extraordinary. What does it tell you about the way transgender clinics in Australia are run?
Well, what's amazing about this judgment is how clinically it describes what actually happens at Australia's gender clinics. So these clinics have been criticised for years by outsiders, including myself, but they've successfully avoided scrutiny until now. So the advantage of a trial is the opportunity to cross-examine clinicians under oath. And the judgment clearly outlines how these clinicians were so focused on gender that they ignored all other causes of gender confusion, and they refused to offer any other treatment than affirmation, which, in my opinion, traps confused kids into a lifetime of unnecessary and harmful medical and surgical intervention.
Well, Andrew, you've been warning about this for years, right? About too much politics, too much ideology, not enough. Just look, just treat the child as a child. What needs to be done?
Well, look, in my opinion, we really need to follow the international research and ban gender-affirming care immediately. So the reviews being done now in Queensland and nationally may be necessary politically, but they're medically redundant, and it's kids and their families that are paying the price. So I think we have enough information already available. We can prevent the harms being done to these vulnerable children, and no one will ever have to again read a judgment like this one, which really made my blood boil. And I think justice will be done.
Well, it also needs to become a political issue, honestly, too. For the politicians are handing the money to these clinics, and they should really step in. If we don't step in, the kind of treatment that's been exposed here, if it's typical, what kind of damage could be done to a vulnerable child?
Well, look, the main danger, and I think it's directly described by Justice Strum in the judgment, is that children's natural curiosity and exploration is misinterpreted by the clinicians as a permanent and unchangeable reality. Now, Justice Strum was very clear that he did not buy that in this case, and he did not buy that as a general possibility for kids. He said, for example, he elicited from the clinicians and experts in the case that there is no evidence that there is a permanent and unchangeable gender identity. This was simply an opinion of those clinicians. So kids who get misinterpreted in this way get pushed onto a lifelong treadmill of treatment, and this can have terrible side effects, which could include infertility, osteoporosis, sexual dysfunction, or even, in the worst cases, suicide. So, but I also think it's important to note the damage done to the father in this case, who had to fight really his ex-wife, the clinicians at the clinic, and the health system just to protect his son. So, as I said, I think justice probably was done in this case, but we're certainly not always so fortunate.
Well, I would say that is a hero father right there. Andrew Amos,
Indeed.
Thank you so much. And also thank you for trying for so long to do something to raise awareness about this issue. It takes time, but at least
Andrew, thank you for your
way.
efforts in raising the awareness. As I said, the main reason that these clinics have been able to go along with this sort of treatment is the lack of scrutiny. So the more people that know about the things that are happening here, the more resistance there is, and the more politicians, I think, will start to respond to what's obviously a huge injustice.
Andrew Amos, thank you very much.